You ever play one of them JRPGs? You know, the kind where you and the other guy take turns stabbing each other in the face? I love those games! In fact, the first video game I ever played was one of them. It was Pokemon Blue on my brother's Game Boy when I was about 3 years old, and then a few years later a friend let us borrow Final Fantasy VII, and I gave it a try, and being the 6-year-old that I was, I skipped all the dialogue, so I didn't know what to do. I got stuck and gave up very quickly. And then a few more years later, during a trip to the store, my older brother got Baten Kaitos. And this is the game that really got me into JRPGs when I was younger, other than Pokemon, of course. And I decided to take a look back at it to see if it's still worth playing today. When you start it up before reaching the title screen, you get a cutscene that tells you that people live on islands floating in the sky and everyone has wings. Then it introduces you to Callus, Shella, Gibari, Liud, Savina, and Mizuti, the 6 characters that make up your team. When the game starts, you find Callus bonding with a guardian spirit, and you enter your name. You are the guardian spirit. This serves as a way for the characters in-game to talk directly to you, the player, without actually breaking the fourth wall. But when it comes to mentioning your name, they just go silent for a second.
You mean you heard his voice?
I guess they didn't have the budget to record additional voice clips for a bunch of common names like they did for the robot in the beginning of Fallout 4. But to be fair, I doubt that Bethesda would account for somebody naming themselves Asgaplap. The level of quality of the voice acting seems to be inconsistent. For the most part, it's alright, like the actors put some effort into their lines, but there are some parts where their acting is on par with that of a disinterested first grader who was forced to participate in a school play. And on top of that, every voice clip in the game has a weird sound to it.
But I stand only for justice.
I speak only through toilet paper. When you step out into the first village, you'll see that this game is beautiful! You could take any screenshot from this game and hang it in an art museum. And the music is incredible. Even after all these years, I still find myself humming different songs from this game when I get bored. After leaving the village, you'll be walking around on the map and be able to see the towns and dungeons. And enemies don't show up on the map. They only appear in dungeons. You see them walking around and only fight them if you run into them. You have no idea how happy this makes me, because random encounters suck! If you've ever played Final Fantasy or any game like it, chances are you've had at least one experience like this. Son of a... Each dungeon has its own puzzles and challenges, like Zosma Tower, where you have to push blocks around, and the Labyrinth of Mirrors, where you don't know where the hell you're going, and the Ancient Library, where you have to find specific books and put them back where they belong to unlock the door to the boss. Sweet Jesus! This is why I hate reading! I feel like now would be a good time to mention that this game has an interesting gimmick involving these magic cards that can contain almost anything, called Magnus. Everything you get in this game, with the exception of money and key items, comes in the form of a Magnus. A vast majority of them are used for battle, and there are healing items to be used outside of battle. And you have a handful of blank magnets that let you pick up things you find in the world, like fire, cheese, and an earth, and the most tedious side quest I've ever seen, and use them to solve puzzles, remove obstacles from your path, or give this guy a seizure. Now let's talk about battle. In most games like this, you have a menu with your attack, magic, and defend options, but in this, you have your cards. Each weapon is an attack, every piece of armor is a block. Harder! And every special move has its name announced as you use it.
Dragon uppercut! Dream blade!
Testicular distress! There are, of course, elemental attacks, 6 elements in total, each with an opposite. There's light and dark, fire and water, and wind and time. Well, actually it's called Chronos, but whenever you use a Chronos attack, it makes clocks happen, and that means time. That's my logic! You don't want to use 2 opposing elements on the same turn, as the stronger element is weakened and the weaker one is cancelled out entirely. And the same goes for defending, and when attacked you need to block with the opposite element to negate that damage.
Every card also has numbers on them. Having a bunch of matching numbers or having them in ascending or descending order will boost the damage you do and reduce the damage you take when blocking. But if you pay more attention to the numbers than the cards themselves, you might accidentally heal the enemy, use two opposing elements, or stab Gibari with bamboo. Harder! With each character using their own weapon, most attacks are specifically for one character. Callus has a sword, so he gets swords. Shella and Mizuti are mages, so they get spells. Gibari uses a paddle, so he gets paddles and stabs. Savina punches things, so she gets claws and gauntlets. And Liud uses a gun, so he gets brass instruments? Why? They clearly have no problem with putting guns in the game, so why aren't his attack cards guns? If he were throwing saxophones at people, I'd understand, but how in the hell do you shoot someone with a trumpet? This is why I never bring him into battle. Seriously, I only used him in 2 battles because the game forced me to. The boss fights are perhaps the best part of the game. Not only do they have some of the best music, but they're fun and challenging, and a couple of them are kind of stupid looking, but most of them are well designed. They're these huge, intimidating beasts like the Saber Dragon, the Thunderfish, and, this guy!
Come one, come all, and have your fortune told. The future is clear to my all-seeing crotch. Also, it shoots lasers.
Harder! In terms of difficulty, the game is very well paced. I played from beginning to end to get the footage for this video, and not once did I have to stop and grind. Of course, I died a few times, but I just tried again and got a better hand. And the most important part of any RPG is the story. And like in 90% of RPGs, this one has the end goal of saving the world. But it's about the journey, not the destination. You stupid! And I'm not going into detail about it. If you want the story, play the game yourself. As much as I love this game, there are some things they could have done better. For example, leveling up. In most RPGs, you level up at the end of battle as soon as you have enough experience. But here, you have to go to church and ask Jesus if you've killed enough things for him to grant you the strength to go kill more things. And remember when I said everything comes in the form of a Magnus? That includes running from battle. Rather than hold a button until you get away, you have to get lucky and draw the escape card if you want to run. And luck plays a pretty big part in whether or not you can actually do anything on your turn. A lot of the time, one character has nothing but defensive Magnus and never gets attacked. You can discard them, but only one at a time, and doing so wastes your turn.
In spite of these flaws, I'd say it's still worth playing, especially if you're a fan of JRPGs, but this game did come out in 2003, so it may be outdated by today's standards. Also, many of the problems with this game were fixed in the prequel, Baten Kaitos Origins, and these games were developed by Monolith Soft and Tricrescendo and published by Namco, and all of these companies are still around, so I'm still holding out hope for another Baten Kaitos game. But before I go, I'd like to leave you with a friendly reminder that Star Platinum is a ripoff. Baten Kaitos did it first.
Special attack, Hellblood's Hammer!